Hello. My journey into sustainability began when my family and I spent a year buying nothing new, and I have to confess, Anna wanted me to talk about waste, and I, until that year, hadn't really made that link between what we buy and what we throw away, and it took me quite a long time to realise that, you know, ultimately the majority of what we buy we end up throwing away at some point. And there are some quite scary statistics. George Monbiot quotes one, and I've tried to source it, but I can't find it. But he reckons that, you know, I think he says 90% of items that are bought end up in landfill within 6 months, or something like that. It's something really scary that sounds like really shocking, but also quite sadly believable. And another statistic that I sort of came across this year that I thought was kind of interesting, scary, but also empowering, is that 60%, around 60% of household consumption accounts for around 60% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So that's everything that we're buying on a day-to-day basis, from food to clothes to, you know, electronic goods, all that sort of thing. So that feels to me quite empowering, because if we can, that's something that we can directly have an impact on. And I know we're going to talk about food later on, but you know, that can have a massive impact as well. So in terms of waste, this is, I never thought I'd be a hierarchy geek, but I totally am. I love the waste hierarchy. And basically it's just a different way of looking at things and thinking that, I think when we talk about waste or we talk about rubbish, for some reason here in the UK, everyone will go, oh yeah, recycling. Isn't recycling a pain? You know, like, why is it different in every council? And everybody whinges about the recycling, and it is really difficult because it's different in every council. And you know, I'm from Warminster, and we have got food waste recycling, which really does my head in, and you guys here have it 10 minutes up the road. So you know, that is really frustrating. But when you look at this, the idea is you start at the bottom and you work your way up, and you can see that recycling is pretty much, you know, it's one of the last resorts ahead of landfill. So I think we need to start having these conversations a little bit more around, yes, absolutely, recycle everything that you can, but let's have a think about how we can reduce waste before that by doing all these things as well. And here in Frome, as Johannes has just kind of gone through with you, you guys are really lucky because you've got some really easy ways that you can be reducing, reusing, rehoming, repairing. You know, all of those projects that Johannes outlined all make it really easy to do that. And you know, for a lot of people in a lot of towns, they won't have a repair cafe, or they won't have a lovely Swish event that happens 3 or 4 times a year. And so it's being made. I think that's one of the brilliant things that you're already doing here. And as Johannes says, if you can increase that by 20%, and also, you know, have a think. It's probably not part of Frome's emergency plan, but how those projects can then be branched out to neighbouring towns and things like that, because if we had all of those projects happening in all of the towns around the country, you can really quickly see what a big impact that would have collectively. So yeah, I just think that if we think about this every time we're buying something with the knowledge that it will ultimately probably become waste, thinking about the waste hopefully will make us much more thoughtful consumers, and I think that's a lot of what it comes down to. So if we can think about refusing, you know, like the balloons that get handed out, or the free pens, or the shampoo bottles you get when you go to a hotel, and things like that you know, you don't really need, but because we're British we probably take them because we don't want to be impolite. And reduce has a massive thing, you know, in terms of fashion. If we can keep items in use, if we can keep our clothes in use for just 9 months longer, that reduces the carbon and water footprint by around 20 to 30%. So Johannes has said there's 20 kilos of embedded carbon in a jumper. You can start seeing, so even if you're really bored to the back teeth of it and don't want to wear it, well, the last thing you need to do is chuck it in landfill. Pass it on to, you know, take it to a Swish event. Pass it on to a charity shop by all means, but just be aware that they are inundated with loads of kind of fast fashion things. So, you know, if I think first and foremost, if you can pass it on to friends or family, or in a Swish or something, in some way that you know it's going to stay in use. With iPhones as well, again, I should have checked the statistic before I came out, but basically, if you keep your iPhone in use for something like another 18 months, if we all did that, it's the carbon footprint of Ireland that is saved. Like, and I just think, like, that's bonkers. Like, it's not that hard to keep your iPhone in use for, it might not even be 18 months, it might be 6 months. I need to double check. The Restart project, who do a lot of repair events, have got some great stats on it. So again, just thinking the whole time, how can we start at the bottom here and work our way up, and so that we're rethinking waste, and rather than thinking, as Anna said, oh, it's cardboard, it's recyclable, that's fine. Well, are there ways that we could have done that so that we didn't have that cardboard to start with? So I think that's something really exciting to explore, and I think here in Frome we're already in a great position to kind of move forwards with that.
Brilliant, thanks.